Are you
going to
live
send
streaming,
Yeah.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Are you going to send a new link every time?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a new link.
New link.
There's a different code each week.
Okay.
Seems like. Yeah. What's that?
Oh, I was trying because my eyes is simply getting the best of
Oh, yeah, good. So,
Okay.
exactly.
It
So
does.
the title of tonight's class is Curious Customs of Rosh Hashana, and the subtitle is Getting the Best of the Satan, is how you say it in Hebrew, but Satan, yeah, is how you read it in English. Okay, so we'll just jump right in. The topic for tonight's class, obviously, is to talk about the different curious customs, and this time on the Jewish calendar, there's a great book by Rabbi Jacobson called 60 Days.
I just ordered it.
Oh, you just ordered it. Excellent. So the 60 days goes to the time we're in now. The 60 days start with the beginning of the month of Elul, which we're in now. We're going into the 19th day of Elul. And Tishrei, the month of all the holidays, of Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. So these 60 days, Elul and Tishrei, are filled with laws, new laws, customs, what we call minhagim. We just came from apple baking, right? Special for Rosh Hashana. So there's symbolic foods that we eat. This is a time which is rich with unique laws and customs for the holidays. Now, the topic for tonight, the curious customs of Rosh Hashana that we're going to talk about tonight, are certain practices that we do that are designed to confuse the Satan. They're meant to confuse the Satan. So we're going to learn who this Satan is that we're talking about according to Jewish tradition. We're going to learn all about these customs that we do with the aim of confusing the Satan in mind. And we'll try to understand what can this possibly mean, that we're doing this in order to confuse the Satan. Now, we'll explain the notion of confusing the Satan here, how it appears in other contexts throughout the year and throughout Jewish practice, and as well as what it means for our own experience in this unique time of year. And how, hopefully by the end of the class, it will give a whole new perspective on our attitude and our approach to what we call the high holidays. The high holidays. All right. So the story is told of a Hasidic Rebbe, I believe, one of the great sages of our people. And when he was a young boy, he was rambunctious. He was a lively boy who made as much trouble as any other boy, maybe more. And his father, who was also a great rabbi, took him to task for his behavior. And the young boy was a clever young boy, and he answered back to his father. He said, you can't blame me for these things because I have a Yetzer Hara. So the Yetzer Hara translates as the evil inclination, right? Which we're going to talk a little bit about at the very beginning tonight, what that means. But we have an evil inclination, so you can't blame me. I have a Yetzer Hara. So his father responded, but we can, you still have to take responsibility. In fact, you could learn a lesson from the Yetzer Hara. He said, so the boy is taken aback. What does that mean? Take a lesson from the Yetzer Hara. So his father explained. He says, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, has a mission from God. It has a purpose for its existence. And the Yetzer Hara is tireless in its work to accomplish this mission. So you should learn a lesson from the Yetzer Hara because you too have a mission. You too have a purpose. And you should be tireless in your work in accomplishing your mission. Don't let your Yetzer Hara be an excuse. Instead, let it be an example for what you should do. So the son, not to be outdone by the father, he lets this soak in a second, and not to be outdone, says to his father, but father, the Yetzer Hara doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. So this story of a young sage, and is more than just a cute story, but it's it's telling us something about the Yetzer Hara, about the evil inclination. And the evil inclination in Jewish thought and in Jewish teachings is more than just some abstract idea of universal urge for bad. Universal urge for we all have our challenges, right? It's more than that. The Talmud identifies the Yetzer Hara as sharing an image, sharing a character with two other villains in Jewish thought. The Yetzer Hara is synonymous with two other characters that we know. So let's jump right into our text for tonight. So the way we do this, for those who are first-timers or it's been a while, the way we do this is we'll look through a number of texts from Jewish rabbinic literature, the Jewish tradition. So we'll from Talmud, from code of Jewish law, from Chassidus, from biblical verses, and we'll use the text as a way to study a topic and to first raise questions, usually is the framework. We'll raise a few questions. We'll then answer the questions, hopefully, with a few more texts, and then by the end, have a lesson that we can take home with us from the discussion. So the first text for tonight is taken from the Talmud, Tractate Baba Basra. And the way that the Talmud pages are, you have two sides to each page, side Aleph and Beis, or A and B. So page 16, the first side, the Talmud is quoted that Reish Lakish said, the Satan, the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, and the Malach HaMaves, the angel of death, are all one thing. So you might hear them interchangeably, used, or might hear different terms being used in different contexts, but what the Talmud is telling us is that this collective of the Yetzer Hara, of the Satan, of Malach HaMaves, angel of death, they're all one idea. Now, what's the idea? They all have a particular divine role to play in creation. They all have a particular divine role to play in creation, and that divine role is to divert or to distract the soul from its mission. The soul has a mission in the performance of Torah and mitzvahs, and our purpose, our to do godly things with one another, with our relationship with God. And the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMaves are all here to divert us, to distract us. Now, the reason I use the word divert is because in our next text, we see from Maimonides that the word for Satan, the root of Satan in Hebrew, has the same word as tishte, or shata, which the next text number 2, explains. This is from Maimonides, the Rambam, from his philosophical work called Mora Nevuchim, or the Guide to the Perplexed, as it's known in the English translation. So in the 3rd volume there, the Rambam explains, know that the name Satan is derived from the same root as Sata, which means to turn away. As in another verse, turn away, Sata, and let pass. So this verse, this shared etymology of the word Satan, and Sata implies the notion of turning and moving away from a thing. So the Satan undoubtedly turns us away from the way of truth and leads us astray in the way of error. So if we're going to talk about it, we're going to learn about the things that we do in order to confuse the Satan, we should know what are we up against. We're trying to confuse this urge, this force, this drive to be diverted from the path of truth, the path of holiness. Now, the Yetzer Hara, for most of us, we can relate to, it is the source of our doubt. It's the source of our skepticism. It's the source of ego and self-importance. It's the source of self-interest, where the decisions that we make, we're looking out for ourselves first and foremost. The urge to shirk responsibility. the urge to avoid duty, to be less than our best. So, you want to put it all into an umbrella term, to be less than what we should be, what we could be. This is the Yetzer Hara. Now, what our sages tell us is that there is one time a year, there's a season each year in the calendar when the Yetzer Hara is especially busy. Now, we're going to see some biblical tradition for this from the book of Job. But this time of year where we're ending one year, we're beginning another, in Jewish thought we think of time as something which is a cycle, that there's certain energies that are present throughout the year that repeat in a cyclical manner. And so here we're coming to the end of the year. We're at the last month of the year. We're taking a reckoning for the year that took place. We're closing up the book, so to say, on a year, and we're starting a new year. So in this time, in this crucial time, this is when the Yetzer Hara is especially busy. You have any accountants in the room? So April, right, is tax season. If you know any accountants, you know that, don't invite them out for dinner, in early April. Teachers, September is you're back to school. And May is when you're wrapping up a school year. There's just a cycle to life. And there's times when people are busy and less busy. So this cycle in creation for the Yetzer Hara is particularly busy at this time. Now, what is he busy with? He's is busy as in a role of what we call the accusing angel. Another term, all lumped together, like we saw with the previous text saying that you have the Yetzer Hara and the Satan, the Melech HaMavet all together. There's another term which is called the accusing angel. So when we talk about Rosh Hashana as a day of judgment, and we talk about it being the end of a year, and we ask God for blessings in the new year as a result of all the work we did in the previous year, so the side against us, the prosecutor, so to say, if we're the defendant and we're looking for a favorable judgment, the prosecuting angel, that's the Melech HaMavet, that's the Yetzer Hara. That's what they're so busy with. Now, how do we know this? Well, like I said, there's a biblical tradition for this. That's the next text 3a. It's from the book of Job, the first chapter, right at the beginning of the story, verses 6 and 7. And it says, the day came about, and the angels of God came to stand beside God. And the Satan too came among them. God said to the Satan, where are you coming from? And the Satan answered God and said, from going to and fro on the earth and walking in it. So this is where we see this dialogue, the Satan's busy talking to God, there's activity. So the commentaries, which we see in the next text, the Metzudas David is one of the, up there with Rashi, as far as one of the primary commentaries of biblical scholarship. And we have, a few of the heavy hitters, so to say, the main commentaries. If you want to know what's going on in the stories of the Bible, so Rashi is one of your primary commentaries. And for the later works, after the 5 books of Moses, you have Metzudas David, which is one of the key commentaries. So Metzudas David explains, now the way this works is that the emboldened text is directly taken from the previous text. We're quoting from those verses in Job, which we just read. So when the verse says, now the day came about, so Metzudas David explains, what is that telling us? So this is the Metzudas David's explanation as follows. It says, this refers to the day reserved for the angels above, those who prosecute and those who defend. And they come to approach God. What is this day? Rosh Hashana, which is called the Day of Judgment. So Metzudas David is explaining the historical context of this exchange between God and the Satan is Rosh Hashana. Now, he talks about the angels of God. That's who God is standing there with when the Satan, starts up the conversation. So the angels of God, these are the defending angels. That's who God was speaking with, for Rosh Hashana. And calling comes to Satan, the prosecuting angel. This is where we see from the biblical stories, from the book of Job, this idea that we have that this is the time of judgment, and this is the time that the Yetzer Hara is so busy. Now, it's from this perspective, it's from this objective of the Yetzer Hara where we have these traditions. To the Yetzer Hara and the Satan, their opposition in this time is the Jewish people. The Jewish people and their work to elicit divine favor for a new year. What is all the work that we're doing now? We're going, so to say, against the Yetzer Hara. So what is our strategy? How do we approach this? So as I mentioned before, we have certain customs that we do in order to confuse the Satan. And some of these traditions you'll be familiar with, and we're going to dive into 3 particular customs that take place during this time, and with the stated objective of confusing the Satan. I just want to see if there's any comments from over there. This little orange bubble means something's been written. Oh, no, everything's fine. Okay, so what are the customs? So the first custom, which starts Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day of the month of Elul, so we're doing it now 2.5 weeks, is we blow the shofar every morning during the month of Elul. So if you've been coming to shul or any Chabad events throughout the world, this the last 2.5 weeks, at the end of services every morning we blow the shofar. That's our custom, to blow the shofar in Elul. Now, just like the mitzvah of blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashana, this customary blowing of the shofar during the month of Elul, the intent is to wake us up. The Frierdiker Rebbe describes it as like an alarm clock, essentially. It's an alarm clock which wakes us up from a spiritual slumber and reminds us, now's the time. Do tshuva. Think about what happened all year. Now's the time before Rosh Hashana to get busy and repairing your spiritual standing. Now, there's another reason which is brought, besides the alarm clock function, of the shofar to wake us up spiritually. The next reason, which is in the next text, we first have a summary slide before we get to the next text. So, who is the Satan? The Satan is, we learned from Rambam, the Satan from the same lashon as Sata, so the Satan is the one who diverts and they distracts us from our performance of Torah and mitzvahs, that urge we have inside of us to be less than we can be. And this Satan is also like a biblical character that we encounter in the book of Job that is busy spending time on high as a prosecuting angel against the souls right before Rosh Hashana and right on Rosh Hashana. So this is the text which describes the custom of blowing shofar in Elul. This is from Rabbi Avraham Klozner, right, who wrote a book, Minhagim, which is customs. So in the very beginning of the book, page 2, it says it is a fitting custom to start blowing from the first day of the month of Elul. The reason for blowing the shofar from the month of Elul, this is the key phrase, is to confuse the Satan, so that he will not discern when Rosh Hashana will be, and he will not prosecute. That's the first custom. The first custom that we do, according to the Sefer Minhagim, is we blow the shofar all the month of Elul in order to confuse the Satan. That's custom number 1. Now, related to this custom is we go all month, the month of Elul, blowing shofar. And then, Erev Rosh Hashanah, the last day of Elul, we don't blow the shofar. Now here, so this is like a multi-pronged strategy. It seems from Minhagim that we're trying to throw them off the scent of when is the real blowing of the shofar, to blow it for a whole month. But now, the other side of the strategy is, we're not going to blow at all. And it may indicate that shofar season is over, right? They're all done blowing shofar, and so if you're going to accuse us of bad things on Rosh Hashanah, you missed the boat. Shuvah season is over, shofar season is over, and hopefully that will confuse the Satan as well. That's text 4b, also from the Sefer Minhagim. It says, for this same reason, to confuse the Satan, we do not blow the shofar on the day before Rosh Hashanah. So the Satan will believe that the day of judgment has passed, and he will not prosecute. Right? We're hoping that he won't show up in court on the right day. He figures the whole thing's all over. They're done blowing shofar, so let's forget it. I can go on my vacation. It's been a hard month. So this is the second custom. So we blow shofar all month, with the exception of the day before Rosh Hashana that we don't blow shofar. Now, the next custom, which is the third one for tonight, is we have a custom throughout the entire year of what's called Shabbos Mevorchim. Now, Shabbos Mevorchim, what is Shabbos Mevorchim? We keep our calendar as a lunar calendar. The months are established by the lunar phenomenon. Every month the moon disappears, and with the reappearance of the new moon, that first sliver of moon that you see in the sky, that is the new month. So the Shabbos before the appearance of the new moon is called Shabbos Mevorchim. Now, if you've been in shul for Shabbos Mevorchim, you know what happens. After the reading of the Torah, after the Haftarah, everything, the rabbi will come up to the bima and will make an announcement, precisely what day Rosh Hashana will be, at what time of the day the moon will appear, so everyone should know and be ready. You could have your telescope out to see the first sliver of the new moon at the exact right moment, and then there's a series of blessings to say for the blessing the new month. Now, this Shabbos Mevorchim, blessing the new month, this is done every month on the Shabbos, the last Shabbos of the old month, right before the Rosh Chodesh. Now, with one exception. There's one month where we don't bless the new moon, and that is the month of Tishrei. The Shabbos before Rosh Hashana, that we don't do the custom of blessing the new month. And you could probably guess why. So text number 5 is from a book called the Lavush. This is a halachic, a Jewish legal text. So in the Lavush he writes, we do not bless Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashana, like we bless the other new months. So too, we do not reference Rosh Chodesh in the sacrificial rite or in the prayers of Rosh Hashana. That's another custom we do. There's no mention of Rosh Chodesh the whole time, even though Rosh Hashana is also Rosh Chodesh. All of this is intended to confuse the Satan, so that he will not know when Rosh Chodesh is, since it has not been sanctified. This is signified in the verse, blow the shofar on the new moon, on the designated day, Kesa b'yom Chageinu. The word Kesa, the verse can be understood to mean that the month is to be concealed, mechuseh. So the etymology, the root of Kesa and mechuseh are the same letters. One means the designated day, and the other means to be concealed. So this designated day, Rosh Hashanah, is something that is kisui. It's hidden and not mentioned. So that's a verse from Scripture as well, a verse from the book of Psalms, the book of Tehillim, and it's an alternative reading, so to say. It doesn't know which day it's referring to, but this explains a biblical source for this custom of not blessing the month of Rosh Hashanah falls out in Tishrei, and all for the reason of confusing the Satan. So we've been introduced to this character, and we know in our own lives what this character can do, as far as one of my rabbis used to call it, the snooze bar, the snooze button, syndrome. You have a big day ahead of you, you go to sleep with big plans, comes the morning time to wake up, and you just want to go back to bed, right? The urge to procrastinate, sometimes you're aggravated, right? And you need your space, you don't want to be around other people, you're irritable. All of these things which make us less than ourselves, this is a real dynamic of the soul. So this effort, this strategy that we have during this special time is we do these various customs in order to confuse the Satan. Now, it's a very peculiar thing, right? There's inherent questions which we're going to discuss soon in this whole concept. But before we get into that, if there are any questions from the group. Anything?
When you say the Sultan will not prosecute, are you referring to he will not mislead us?
No. So it's like this. Let's give an example. Let's say that I had an obligation, or one had. Let's say one person hypothetically had an obligation to help his neighbor. We're told that, like, one of the biblical verses, it says that it speaks metaphorically, but if you said you see your neighbor's donkey collapsed under its burden, right? Your friend's in need, and you're not supposed to hide from this collapsed burden. You're supposed to help him pick the donkey back up and readjust the burden. That's a metaphor, really, for all ways that we should be helping one another. Let's say we have an opportunity to help another person, and we do hide from it. We've got a meeting, and had a long day, I can't be bothered, so we look the other way and we don't help a person in their time of need. Now comes along Rosh Hashana, and God is going to determine if you're going to have a year of plenty or a year of need, if you're going to have a year of health or a year of sickness. All these things are being determined on the Day of Judgment. So here you are praying earnestly on Rosh Hashana, please God, give me all the things I want, health and happiness and success, all these type of things. But hey, we're not so fast. Remember that time when you looked the other way and you could have helped your friend? So along comes the Sultan and says, this guy doesn't deserve a good year. Didn't you see back here on the tape? He forgot all about helping his neighbor. So, oh, you're right. That's good evidence. Maybe we should reconsider this whole blessing for a good year. Now, the defending angels will come along and say, but look over here. That was just a bad day. There's 350 more days. And look at all these good things that he's been doing or she's been doing this entire year. Let's give him or her a blessing for a sweet year. There's like a whole back and forth reviewing your record. Because he's a prosecuting angel, he's coming to remind God of all the bad things that you did. Now, in the story of Job, which is not tonight's topic, but in the story of Job, that's exactly what happened. Oh, here's Job as this righteous man. He loves God. And the angel says, well, not so fast. He's got a pretty good life. It's not so hard to love God like this. Let's see what happens when we take away this, and we take away that, and we take away this. Let's test him there. So it's the same concept. All right, good question. Yeah.
Did you say it was the Song of Solomon, the book? In the last two sentences, like this,
Oh, it was Psalms from King David. Yeah, Psalms. The Book of Tehillim. Any other questions? No questions from home. My talking button is not orange. Yeah. Any questions from home? Anyone? Okay. So the next thing, the next part we're going to go into is like, okay, fine. There's this Satan, and we can relate to it in our own challenges. And then maybe it's a very fascinating topic that there's angels on high, making trouble for us and these type of things. It's very interesting stuff. But what exactly does it mean when we're saying we hope to fool the Satan and kind of throw him off the mark for what day Rosh Hashana is? Like, how exactly are we supposed to fool the Satan? And what kind of Satan is this anyways, if we can fool him by blowing a horn? This isn't much competition if we can throw him off the scent by blowing a ram's horn in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? How can we expect to fool the Satan? Now, if you're thinking this, good, because this is a question that's been asked by rabbis for hundreds or thousands of years. What does this mean when we say we're trying to fool the Satan? So the next text we're going to say, text number 6. I'm going to jump over this. This is another review slide. I got to remember that we're doing these also. So just a quick review of the first part. The ways that we confuse the Satan, our customs for trying to confuse the Satan. First is we're blowing the shofar in the month of Elul. Next is we don't blow the shofar in Elul on the last day, which is Erev Rosh Hashana. And then finally, we don't even mention Rosh Chodesh, Tishrei, in our prayers in the last Shabbos of the year. So here's the text, text number 6. It's from the Imre Emes, which is a book of Hasidic thought. It's written by a Hasidic master, by Avraham Mordechai Alter. And in the Imre Emes, it has a section called Likutim, or like anthologies. And here, on the particular topic is the tractate Rosh Hashana. So on this expression, to confuse the Satan, all of these things we're doing to confuse the Satan, he asks the question, this is perplexing. For the very same Yetzer Hara already saw last year that we blew the shofar, and nothing happened. Why then would he be confused again? You know, like how the expression go, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So here we've been trying this same trick for thousands of years. You think the Satan would understand, you know, that isn't going to work anymore. So this is a question the rabbis asked. And what do you mean this is meant to confuse the Satan? Now, this is a Hasidic text. Now, we have a Kabbalistic work, which is called Emes LeYaakov, which is written by Yaakov Shaltiel Nino, one of the Kabbalists. He writes in text 7a, it's already been a number of years that I've learned of this, that I've learned of these customs that we do to confuse the Satan. And I was troubled by it. How is the other side, that's the Kabbalistic expression called the Sitra Achara, the other side is how we refer to the forces of evil in Kabbalistic literature. So how is it that the other side is fooled by this every time without the matter remaining in its memory? Right? So the same kind of question that the Hasidic Rabbi asked, and it's like, what are we dealing with here? How are we expecting to fool using the same tricks over and over and over again? Now, so he gives a bit of an answer, and he explains in the same text, he says that this idea about memory, how could the same trick work over and over again? He actually is giving an answer. It's a fascinating answer about the nature of our challenge. See, part of our nature of our challenge is that we may have figured out how to win the challenge today, but tomorrow it'll be an all-new challenge. So that's how we can have this concept of forgetting, is because each day, each year is a new thing, a new challenge. So that's the answer he says here. Now I will tell the truth that I heard by Chaim Pinto, another Kabbalist. He said, who said that there is no question to begin with. This question about how do you fool with the same trick every year, how can you even remember it, is not really even a question at all. Because it is known that every day a supernal refinement is effective, right? We're all doing our best. We're all doing work and making progress. And that which is holy is refined from the forces of evil. And the remaining husk of evil is nullified. And so it is every single day. Therefore, the klipa, the force of evil of today, is not the same as yesterday's or tomorrow's. Every day, a new face arrives. We may have tricked last year's Yetzer Hara with this trick, and the reason it's going to work again, essentially, the answer he's saying, is because it's a new Yetzer Hara. So you could look at it depending on, this is like kind of like a glass half full or a glass half empty type matter. On the one hand, we have the brand new strength to overcome the Yetzer Hara every day. So that's the glass half full, right? We're given the power to refine every day. The glass half empty part is like, so is the Yetzer Hara. There's a new Yetzer Hara every day. Just because we beat yesterday's challenge doesn't mean there won't be one tomorrow. So this is the first day, the first explanation a little bit about what we mean by confusing and how confusing could work, and kind of pushing off the question. But the question is still a good question. How do we expect to fool the Yetzer Hara? Now, the reason it's a good question is because Rosh Hashana, we're saying trying to throw them off the scent, or throw them off shouldn't show up on that day for work. This is a day which is known and marked in calendars all over the world. Just because we don't announce it in shul doesn't mean it isn't known, right? You can go to Chabad.org and click on holidays, and you can get all the details down to the exact minute you're supposed to light the candles for Rosh Hashanah. This is not a secret, right? Or if it is a secret, it's not very closely held, this secret. We're pushing it out, all the information. Now, so the Lubavitcher Rebbe poses this question in the same and similar terms. Like if we're trying to fool the Yetzer Hara as to what day it is precisely, it's something which is known. So, hold on 1 second. So it's here, text number 9. Text number 9 from the Likutei Sichos of the Rebbe. Now, Likutei Sichos, just to take a second about what that is. Likutei Sichos, there's where we have Fabrengens. There are public talks that the Rebbe gave, teaching Chassidus. And you had various styles of teaching. One style of teaching was what we call Maimorim, where the Rebbe would give deep Chassidic discourses on particular topics in Chassidus, and there would be in-depth treatments of a given topic according to Chassidic thought. Now you have another style of teaching, which would be translated loosely as a talk, a chat almost, sichos. So there, the Rebbe gives a treatment of all kinds of other topics, but in less depth and in less Chassidic terminology. It's still the teachings of Chassidus, and it's still in the style of Fabrengen, but it's a different approach to answering questions in Jewish thought. So this is taken from the Likutei Sichos, but it's addressing this topic. So the Rebbe's teaching, it translates into English, it says the Satan is an angel and appears before the heavenly court, as is clearly stated in the beginning of the book of Job, the book of Job. The Satan had come on the day of judgment, and that is Rosh Hashana, amongst the other angels of God, to stand beside God. So how then can we deem it possible to confuse or deceive him regarding such a simple matter that as a consequence of these customs, he will not know that today is Rosh Hashana? I mean, this is his job, right? This is his whole reason for being. And here he is with his appointment with God on the most holy day. How is it? The comment from home is kind of funny to picture the Satan going online to Chabad.org.
Very good.
Yeah. So, how is it possible? And the Rebbe goes even further. He says, he will not know that today Rosh Hashana as matters well known. It's printed in calendars, and so on. The Rebbe continues, on Rosh Hashana we observe quite a number of practices in which it is readily apparent that today is Rosh Hashana, the first of the month of Tishrei. How then can we say that since Rosh Chodesh was not sanctified beforehand, that the Satan will not know that this is Rosh Hashana? So everybody's asking this question in a strong language, which is, what does this mean? You're saying it's to do with confusing the Satan. Okay, we answered a little bit by saying it's a different Satan all the time. You can confuse them with the same old trick because it's a new Satan. Old tricks work on new Satans. But that can't be a sufficient answer, because we see clearly from the book of Job, the book of Job that everybody's bringing up, is that this is something that they know about. And all our practices, we're not hiding that it's Rosh Hashana. It's in our calendars. It's printed. It's everywhere. So what do we mean? We're going to have to reinterpret the phrase confusing the Satan. That the practices that we're doing, rather than mixing the Satan up in the hopes that he won't show up on the big day, whether everybody's going to help us understand this is that instead, these practices, these customs, send a signal to the Satan. A message which is so powerful that it will completely shift the view of the Satan of the Jewish people, of the souls of mankind. See, again, to reiterate the idea that the Satan's job is to come and make accusations of all our failings, and as a prosecutor. So instead of trying to get the prosecutor not to show up on court the day of the trial, instead we're going to bring such compelling evidence to the contrary that the prosecutor will give up the case. That's why the Rebbe is going to reinterpret the expression confusing the Satan. Okay, so that's part 3. I have an orange bubble. Let's see if it's the joke we heard. Yeah.
He's what?
Yeah, while you're at home, you can chat in, and that way.
Please,
No big deal.
I don't know.
I'm talking to the stream. I'm talking to
Yeah.
these angels that come with me everywhere.
Yeah.
Or as one guy said, you're talking to Samsung.
Yeah. Okay, so to unravel this mystery and to reinterpret the term, reinterpret the concept of confusing the Satan, we're going to look at another context where we try to confuse the Satan in the Talmud. And there's another rationale which is used to explain a certain law in Rosh Hashana and this idea of confusing the Satan. So this is another summary slide. So here we have is a screenshot from the Chabad.org webpage, the High Holidays page, Rosh Hashanah, exactly what date it is, October 2nd to the 4th of 2016. All the things we're going to be doing to observe Rosh Hashanah, like apples and honey and shofar and all these other things. How are we supposed to throw the Yetzer Hara off the trail? So instead, we're going to learn the message that we're sending to confuse him. All right, so in the Talmud, Tractate Rosh Hashanah, again, page 16A and then B. So now it's like same page, but as you flip the page over to the other side, we're still going on this topic. So quotes from the Talmud, Rabbi Yitzchak said, why do we sound the horn on the New Year? This doesn't seem like a rabbi question, right? Why do we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah? What's that?
Wake up
the soul. Okay, that's a good answer. Now, the Gemara answers and says, like, wait a second. What do you mean, why do we sound the shofar? Why do we blow the shofar? We do it because God told us to. It's a mitzvah. So why do you blow the shofar? God told us to blow the shofar. So then he says, no, that's not what Rabbi Yitzchak means. Rabbi Yitzchak, what he means is, why do we sound a trua? Right? You have the different sounds, Kia, Shvarim, Terua. So why do we sound a trua? So he asks again, why do we sound a trua? God told us, the All-Merciful has proclaimed a memorial of trua, Zichron Terua, the verse says. So, I don't get your question. The Talmud says, no, what he means is, why do we sound a tekiah and a terua sitting, and then again sound the tekiah and the terua standing? I mean, why do we have all these different ways of blowing the shofar? So, you may not be surprised to hear the answer the Gemara gives. The reason is that it's in order to confuse the accuser. Same thing. So here, it's clear we're not trying to throw the Yetzer Hara off as to what day it is. It's Rosh Hashanah itself. We're doing the biblical mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah to blow the shofar, but the way we're doing it, the Gemara asks, why are you doing it that way? And with sitting and standing, this sound, that sound, what's with all the choreography? So the Gemara answers the same reason, the exact same reason. It is in order to confuse the accuser. Now, regarding the other practices, just like regarding the other practices, we see the Chassidus is going to explain the same kind of thing, same kind of question. How does this work? You're blowing the shofar in multiple ways, sitting, standing, tekiah, trua, these different ways in order to confuse the Satan. How is that supposed to work exactly? This is the question in Chassidus. This is from Tolos Yaakov Yosef, which is another work of Chassidic thought. It says, we ought to further explain the Talmudic statement, why do we sound the tekiah and trua while sitting? Why do you have to explain it? Because it's perplexing. Does the Satan not know that this is a Jewish custom? Why then does he become so confused? So it's the same question. How is this supposed to work to confuse the Satan? Now, there's lots of explanations given. There are simple reasons and esoteric reasons, and there's a whole library of thought that goes into this. But we're going to go back to Rashi. We mentioned earlier, Rashi is a classic commentary. So Rashi is not only a classic commentary of the Bible, Rashi is also probably the classic commentary of the Talmud. So in the Talmud, Rashi on our page 16b of Rosh Hashana, Rashi explains this term in order to confuse. What do the words mean in the Gemara when we say in order to confuse? The answer is so that he will not prosecute. We're not trying to throw him off there at Rosh Hashana. We're not trying to make it so he won't show up. The simple answer Rashi explains is that he won't prosecute. When he hears that the Jewish people cherish the commandments, his words get stuck. So Rashi's take on confusing the Satan is not in order to, again, to make sure he doesn't show up or he gets off the day. He should know it's the day. And he should know by the practices, the mitzvahs, and the customs we're going to see that we do, this is the most compelling answer to his accusations.
So it overrides basically like the wrongdoings and other things that otherwise would have been the reason.
Exactly. Instead of a misdirection, a strategy of misdirection, it's a strategy of a substantive response.
Is it enough to override everything, or it depends? There are different kinds of not helping a neighbor or doing something that's for your worse.
Right.
The whole year could have been pretty bad.
It's a good question. I'll tell you the hopeful spirit of this time is that it couldn't have been worse than the sin of the golden calf. That when the sin of the golden calf after the giving of the Torah and Moshe broke the 2 tablets, that was as bad as it gets. That was the sin of all sins, so to say. And Moshe went back on the mountain to ask for forgiveness on Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day of Elul. And he came back with complete atonement and forgiveness of the Jewish people on Yom Kippur. So we have, again, we talk about cycles of time. Instead of thinking of time in Jewish concept as some long stretched out thing, linear, we think of time as cyclical. So this energy of forgiveness which Moshe captured for giving forgiveness for the golden calf is the same energy that's available to us now. So there's hope.
Moshe asking for forgiveness is different.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up as well.
What
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moshe had that same question. Moshe said to God, this worked because I did it. It's a miracle that I pulled this off, and God's forgiveness for the Jewish people. But then Moshe asked God, the Medrash tells us, what will be when I'm gone? They're bound to mess up again. And if I'm not here to get forgiveness for them, what will they do? The Medrash explains that God said, I'll show you. This is what you do. And he showed him an image of a person in prayer, and the prayer, particularly with the prayer shawl, and with the prayer shawl on, he said, say these words. And it was the 13 attributes of mercy that we say over and over and over again on Yom Kippur. You'll say these words in prayer, this will be in place of you, Moshe, as the defender of the Jewish people. So he gave us like the secret code. If you just keep saying these 13 attributes of mercy, that'll be as if Moshe was the defending angel, so to say. Now, we still have to do our work, and we're still going to hopefully take a lesson home. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card that we say the 13 attributes of mercy, and that's it. But we're beginning now to understand the power of the confusion. The real power of the confusion is not that it's a clever trick. The real power of the confusion is how significant of a response it is. Now, what's the significance of the response? Now, the confusion that the angel of death, the Malach HaMavet, the Yetzer Hara, the Satan is experiencing, is that this is really, in essence, a baseless accusation. The accusation that we failed in whichever ways that we failed, and we all know ourselves, right? We've been spending the whole year with ourselves, and you shouldn't try to fool yourself because you'll only be fooling a fool. And there's no big accomplishment in fooling a fool. So we know who we are. We know where we're at. Now, nevertheless, with all of our record and our failings, the accusation of the Satan is a baseless accusation when he hears the blowing of the shofar on Rosh Hashana, because it shows how committed we are. Not just committed, how much we cherish the performance of God's mitzvahs. I mean, I see it. There's people that I see, as a rabbi here in the shul, twice a year. I see them on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. There's something that stirs in the soul. This is the time I have to be in shul. This is the time I need to hear the shofar. What are we saying? That regardless of what took place throughout the entire year, this mitzvah, this opportunity is so precious, I have to hear the blowing of the shofar. Now, when the angel hears that level of commitment, okay, then you're right. I'm confused. I thought you were the one who ignored the donkey. I thought you were the one who didn't help your friend. I thought you were the one who told this lie or whatever it is. Now I know that that's all baseless accusation. Now, the way we're going to unpack the next few texts is that the Rebbe says this is really the essence of all the Elul customs as well. The same way the Talmud is explaining that on Rosh Hashanah, when we blow the shofar, that confuses the Satan, and he realizes that the accusation is baseless. The same type of messaging is what the Satan is hearing, and in order to be confused, from all the customs of Elul as well. All right, so I'll go through these one by one. So the first custom is blowing the shofar in Elul. So this is back from the Sikha that we quoted earlier and tonight from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So in that same Sikha, the Rebbe said, just like we explained in the Talmud, that Rashi explained, that we confused his accusation by blowing shofar as a mitzvah. Similarly, we can explain the concept of confounding the Satan with regard to the blowing of the shofar during the month of Elul. That's our first custom. The theme of the tekiyas, the sounds of the shofar in the month of Elul, is, as is known, to remind the Jewish people to repent. Therefore, when the Jewish people blow the shofar and becoming inspired to do tshuva, the Satan becomes confused, thinking that as a result of their tshuva and Elul, the people have already, even in Elul, emerged victorious from judgment. Thus, there's no use in his prosecuting on Rosh Hashanah, and he stands to achieve nothing by it. His words, as the Talmud says, are blocked. That's Rashi on the Talmud. His words are blocked. So the spirit of tshuva that is awakened in us when we hear the shofar in Elul, that's already sending this same strong message to the Satan that whatever you're going to say about what we did wrong, that's not who we are. Now, the next custom, what was the next custom after blowing the shofar? Right. The inverse of it. Don't blow the shofar. On the last day of Elul, we don't blow the shofar. So that's text 13b. Again, we're in the Rebbe's Sikha here explaining what that means. So as to further confuse the Satan and to lead him to believe the Jewish people have already earned a favorable judgment by being inspired to tshuva from the Elul tekiyas, we cease on the day immediately before Rosh Hashanah, we cease blowing the shofar. Now here is another layer to the message. The message that we convey is that we are no longer in need of inspiration from the sounds of the shofar. Yeah, we got it already. So, step one is, as soon as you're inspired to do tshuva, you're a whole different person. Step two is, since you've been doing so much tshuva, the whole Elul, you're already holding on Rosh Hashanah, on Erev Rosh Hashanah. You're already holding by that spiritual level of Rosh Hashanah.
You don't need the reminder.
You don't need it anymore. Exactly. We've demonstrated our confidence in the power of all the work that we've done this month. We already know we're going to have a positive verdict, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, the Day of Judgment. All right, so what's the third custom? Rosh Chodesh. Right. So there's the Shabbos Mevorchim, or before Rosh Chodesh, where we bless the new month. So Tishrei is the one month of the year where we don't do that. Now, Rosh Chodesh, since it's not going to happen again, so since it don't happen 3 weeks ago, we had our last Shabbos Mevorchim. Rosh Chodesh is a time of blessings. When you look at the prayers that we say, there's a heavy emphasis on themes like abundance, life, forgiveness, atonement. All of these things we say Amen, Amen, Amen over and over again. So we're in this spirit of blessing in the time of Rosh Chodesh. Now, it turns out, just by mentioning all of this power of Rosh Chodesh before Rosh Chodesh is a potent source of these blessings. But here, the custom is once again, we're illustrating that at this time, at our level, at this time in Elul, we have confidence that we don't need the language. We don't need the reminder. We are holding with total confidence that we don't even need a mention of it at all. That's the next text from the Rebbe. So it says, this is the intent of the reason given for not mentioning Rosh Chodesh on Rosh Hashana. It's to confuse the Satan so that he will not know that today is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Now this does not refer to a lack of awareness regarding the time of Rosh Chodesh, but instead it's regarding the day's themes and associated practices. Since the Jewish people do not mention Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Hashana, the Satan will not sense the Rosh Chodesh. The inspiration and accompanying divine service, this is the intent of the statement, he will not know that today is Rosh Chodesh. This confuses the Satan, so he will not come to prosecute. For they demonstrated that their primary efforts in Rosh Hashanah service are so complete and superior that they do not need the added inspiration of Rosh Chodesh. For even without it, they've already received a favorable verdict. So, to sum this all up, in the last text of the night, the Rebbe rereads the Talmudic statement, he will not know when to judge, a new way. Now, so over here, when we're talking about confusing the Satan and undermining the Satan, where the accusations are what's been confused. What the Satan realizes is not that he showed up on the wrong day or he doesn't need to do his job anymore. It's just that instead that the accusations themselves have been confused. They're baseless. So we send this messaging throughout Elul first by our extra faithful service, which has been woken up by the blowing of the shofar, and finally the lack of mention of Rosh Chodesh and the lack of blowing shofar on the last day is all of this messaging of confidence that we know that we've accomplished, we've done all the work that needs to be done in preparation for Rosh Hashana. All right. So the last text of the night, this is also the last text also from the Rebbe's Sikha, and it reads, the meaning of not knowing when Rosh Hashana will be is not that he doesn't know the calendar date from the time of Rosh Hashana, but that he doesn't know when the defining aspect and the theme of Rosh Hashana, the judgment and verdict of Rosh Hashana, at which time he must act as a prosecutor will be. So this is the message to take home. This is the lesson for us. So we have work to do, right? We're blowing the shofar this month to wake ourselves up, to be aware of the potential, of the power, the energy of forgiveness that's present in this cycle of time. And we're now leaving what's called Chai Elul, and we're going into the 19th day of Elul. I'll tell you a couple things about how powerful this time is. So from the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Elul until the end of the month, we have 30 days. There are 30 days in this month, and the waking hours of a day are 12 hours, right? So without getting too, I don't get bogged down in the 12-hour part, but let's just say you'll take my word for it. It's 12 hours that you're awake, and third time's 30 days. There's 360 hours of Elul. So the rabbis tell us one of the potential energies we have in this time is that for every hour, every waking hour of this month, you can repair one day of the year. Like one hour of focused goodness and introspection and holiness, 1 hour equals 1 day. Now, as we get going through the month, it gets stronger. So starting with Chai Elul, you have each day, there's only 12 days left in the month, each day corresponds to an entire month. If you'll work on, like today was Tishrei, like last Tishrei, Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, all that time, we spent today repairing last Tishrei. So then the month after Tishrei Cheshvan, you have tomorrow, now we can already be repairing that day. Until we get to the last days, the days of Slichus, the last week of the month, then it gets even more powerful. What happens is that on the Shabbos, the last Shabbos of the year, you can fix up all the Shabboses of the year by getting that one Shabbos right. And then you follow Shabbos by a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you keep going. That last week, you fix day for day the entire year. So there's all this amazing potential energy spiritually during this time for us to be focused on repair and do the work. So maybe you're thinking, why didn't I come to this class 3 weeks ago? We're already 19 days into the month, and but here it's not too late to hear the sound of the shofar, to hear the call of the shofar waking us up to take advantage of this time. That's the confusion number one. By us doing the work, we already diffuse the accusation of the Satan. Then we have this message for ourselves, is that once we've done the work, once we've taken this amazing opportunity, that we have complete confidence in God's forgiveness. We have complete confidence in God's blessings. And when we know that we've heard the sound of the shofar, we've done the work necessary, we come with confidence to Shul, Rosh Hashana, we hear the blowing of shofar, which is not a custom, it's a mitzvah to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashana. When we hear that call, that's when we know with certainty that we'll all be blessed with Hoshana Tova, Sukkah, a good year, a sweet year, and it should be that way for all of us. All right, any questions?
Sure glad I'm a good person.
What's that?
Sure glad I'm a good person.
Me too. I'm glad you're a good person too. Yeah.
Not to nitpick. It's a leap year. You do this for 13 days. Because you've got.
No, you get a double potent day. You can fix both Adars in one day.
Oh, okay.
Still a dar.
Yeah, you really have a potent day on that day. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, we'll meet here again next week for the Yom Kippur class. It'll be the Yom Kippur holiday class. We'll have a 1 week break for Yom Kippur, and then the following week we'll have the Sukkot class. And there'll be emails announcing the classes, and like I said, if the email will also announce login information if you want to join us remotely. All right, I think there's another comment. I have an orange bubble over there. If it's not too late, when you see the increase of intensity of the latter days of Elul, now is a good time. Yeah. Very good. That's a good point. Okay. So good night, everyone. I'm going to close this up.
Good. Thank you.
Are there any runs?
Are there any more for bringing magazines?
Kids pass those.
Yeah, they have to bring a magazine. I think in the shul. It's in the office, I believe. Yeah.
Is that closed right now?
I can walk over. I'll walk over and we'll get it for you.
Yeah, true.
Thank you, Rabbi.
There's a meeting.
Thank you.
Should have gotten